This is The Beat with Ari Melber, September 30th, 2019.
Or saving themselves. As promised, I turn to our experts on these big picture issues. From the United States Congress, Ted Lieu, who serves on the Judiciary Committee, Ambassador Nancy Soderberg, former UN ambassador, the third-ranking official on the National Security Council during the Clinton administration, and NYU law professor Melissa Murray, who clerked for Judge Sotomayor. Good evening to each of you. Professor, I want to begin with you on the law. What does it mean when we see the sitting United States Attorney General trying to take a half step away, and the Secretary of State here caught on that call? Are these individuals, in your view, looking at their own legal liability?
It would be hard for them not to at this point. I think we've seen over the last couple of months that Bill Barr has been incredibly close to the president, has almost functioned as a quasi-federal defender for the president in the Mueller investigation. The fact that he's taken steps saying that he's surprised and angry by the president's association with him in this event suggests that he's stepping back a little, and Mike Pompeo will also have to think about what this means for him going forward. This presidency looks poised to at least go through the ringer with Congress, and I think there are a lot of people who are trying to get out of the way.
Your interpretation of the Barr remarks, I'll read them here. They are in the Associated Press, attributed to someone close to Barr, but they're not his words yet, and maybe that's a very deliberate strategy on his part. It says that this person close to him said Barr was, quote, surprised and angry to discover he'd been lumped in with Giuliani.
Well, again, surprised, angry, he's making very clear through his representative, or representative is making clear on his behalf, that he doesn't feel like he should be associated with this conduct, that somehow he's above this fray and outside of it. And he wants to make clear about that. And again, Bill Barr is really deeply enmeshed in this, even if he isn't actually involved, because of his role in the Department of Justice. The whole idea of the whistleblower escalating this through the Department of Justice means that if there was obstruction, the DOJ possibly had a critical role in keeping this from Congress and congressional oversight, and that would certainly implicate Barr. So here we have him taking very strong steps to distance himself from everything that's going on.
Congressman Lieu, what do you see as important tonight?
Thank you, Ari, for your question. You are absolutely correct that the House is going forward with a full force impeachment inquiry. But I do want to note that impeachment is one of the gravest powers of Congress, second only to the power to declare war. It should never be our first option. It has to be our last option. So we're going to follow the facts where it may lead. The facts that already come out are very damning. It shows that the president of the United States was pressuring a foreign power to help his re-election campaign. It's a similar pattern of behavior with Russia, and a similar pattern of behavior with what the New York Times just reported with now the Australian Prime Minister, where Trump asked him to go and help work with Bill Barr on the origins of the Mueller report.
Yeah, and you mentioned that we're also learning from people who've been inside the administration. So for the ambassador, take a listen to a former Trump DHS official here just yesterday.
What the president is referring to there is a debunked conspiracy theory that somehow Ukraine, not Russia, hacked the Democratic emails in 2016, and that Ukraine might have the DNC server or Hillary's emails. The details are both convoluted and false. And during your time in the White House, you explained that to the president, right?
I did. It's not only a conspiracy theory, it is completely debunked.
Ambassador, at what point do you see this as going beyond the president's competence, where his own people say they tell him something's false, he believes it to be true, and gets into the propriety or the abuse of power, that what he believes to be true or false comes second to him trying to abuse basically the power of his office to go after Biden or anyone else for his own reelection?
I think one of the key challenges that the president has is he's never been in government, and he fundamentally lacks the understanding of the fact that the vast majority of people who work in government are actually patriots. They believe in the system, they believe in doing right from wrong. And I worked in government for decades. I didn't know who half the career people's political party was. You just don't ask that. And so what the president doesn't understand, and I would say a warning to all of the people who are getting caught up in this, the truth will come out. It is simply not possible to hide things from the public. There are too many people involved, and everything will come out. And to the extent it's always the cover-up, don't engage in this cover-up. Come forward, tell the truth, and stop enabling the president who's trying to literally hire outside people to do his bidding.
And what does that tell you? I mean, there are many people who argue the president's powers are at their peak in dealing with foreign affairs and dealing with other countries.
The president is very powerful in foreign policy, but not all powerful. The Congress has a role, the judicial has a role, our judges have a role, and ultimately the facts have a role here, and they will come out. And I would just reiterate, having sat in on hundreds of those phone calls, it's not surprising to me that Secretary Pompeo is now known to have been on that call as well. What
Should he have done
role?
Something?
Well, he shouldn't have hidden it yesterday when he was on all the morning talk shows, but it's also going to just raise a question of what was the role in holding up this aid to our ally? That President Trump rightly increased the aid to defend Ukraine against the Russians, and now it's held up. Why? Who was involved in that? And when you're a president of the United States, the government supports you, but it also will stand up to you when they feel there's wrongdoing, and that's what we're going to see more and more. And again, I would just reiterate, do not engage in the instinct to cover up and hide, because it will fail.
And Congressman, put that in context for us. Do you view this as chiefly a scandal about Donald Trump and whether he's abusing his office, or do you view this now, and do these committees that you're working with view this as something where really the people in charge of the Justice Department and the State Department, these are some of the most important, I mean, these are people, they're the top of the line of succession. They're some of the most important office holders in the federal government. Do you view them as potentially crossing lines where they should no longer hold these posts?
Yes, it's about the President of the United States abusing the power of the presidency to leverage foreign governments to help his political interests and get dirt on his political opponent. And it's also about a massive cover-up of different officials who wanted to put his transcript into these secret lockdown servers, who didn't want the public to have access to this information. And we're going to see if this cover-up continues, because we've just issued subpoenas to Giuliani, to other officials, and if they don't provide information, the American people will know they're continuing to hide information from Congress and the American people. And we want the truth to come out, and it's going to show some very bad things that the president and his officials engaged in.
If those folks resist, does that become an article of impeachment?
It absolutely could. Obstruction of Congress could be an article of impeachment. We're going to see, based on what comes out in the next few weeks, we'll make a decision based on that, based on how much of the information the administration provides.
The other thing I want to ask you while I have you, Congressman, is we and our viewers have heard from you throughout the Mueller probe, which uncovered crime, but also did not involve Bob Mueller indicting anyone on an election conspiracy. And I emphasized to my viewers as the probe was wrapping up, before we even read the Mueller report, that it did not appear like it was heading that way with conspiracy indictments, which doesn't mean people didn't do things that voters can decide to reward or punish or have concerns about, but it didn't cross that line. I wonder now that the speaker, who of course calls a lot of the shots in your party, has said time is different. Do you see, and can you articulate a difference between whatever was in that Russian ballpark last time and what happened here, where it does appear that there is stronger evidence than what Mueller had on Russia, that the president is asking other countries to help him take out rivals? Do you see it as worse, or would you put it differently?
One difference is that we didn't have Attorney General Bill Barr come in with a completely misleading memo that really misdirected the American people about what was in the Mueller report. In this case, you have American people reading these documents about the same time members of Congress are. So everyone has been able to read the summarized transcript of what the president actually said. That's not hearsay. We saw the president's own words. He literally said he wanted a favor.
That's what I'm pressing you on. I mean,
president.
Apart from criticizing Mr. Barr, is this, in your view, worse based on the evidence? Whatever happened in the Trump Tower meeting, it wasn't a government meeting. There was no transcript. No one may ever know other than its members. Here, as you say, there's more evidence. Do you see this evidence as worse, or you wouldn't go that far?
It's worse in the sense that we have more evidence. We have the summarized call transcript, we have the whistleblower complaint, and we have undisputed facts. No one disputes that Donald Trump halted military aid to Ukraine, and then a week later he has this phone call where he solicits the favor.
Very interesting, real expertise here. I thank each of you, Congressman Lieu, Ambassador Soderberg, and Professor Melissa Murray with us here in New York as always. Thank you. Coming up, why Mitch McConnell is saying officially there will definitely be a Senate trial of Trump if there's an impeachment.